Let's proceed with the parole officer as law enforcement agent. So ngayon, ano kung paano nagiging parole officer, law enforcement agent at the same time. Parole officers offers the community preventive and protective service through a written. So nagiging law enforcement agent sila dahil binibigyan nila ng preventive at saka protective service ang mga mamamayan sa pag-supervise ng paruli. Of course, dahil malay natin, baka yung paruli na yan is bumalik siya doon sa kanyang kinaugalian na ugali na masama sa lipunan. By constant supervision of the individual and follow-up of his day-to-day activities, the parole officer is able to recommend parolees who are on the road leading back to crime. Of course, dahil nga naisip ng parole na, parati akong tinitingnan, may nakamatsyag sa akin. So, hindi ako po pwedeng magumawa ng masama. So, from that moment, nagiging law enforcement agent ang parole officer dahil na prevent niya na gumawa ng future crime ang isang parole. Okay. Note, the role of the parole provision officer as law enforcement agent is discussed in the chapter on provision. Okay. The parole officer, a case worker, or a police officer. So, paano? There is controversy as to whether or not the parole officer should be clothed with law enforcement authority. So, paano? Diba? Mahirap na yan. Mahirap na nakasuot yan. So, ano bang dapat? Mayroon ba silang uniform? Wala. One school of thought holds the view that parole officers should not perform law enforcement work. So, yan. Mayroong isang school of thought na nagsasabi na hindi dapat sila gumagawa ng law enforcement work, such as sleuthing and arresting his ward. Yan, hindi po pwede. To do so would be incompatible with his role as a social case worker. So, hindi magiging compatible sa kanya na maging social case worker din. The effectivity of the parole officer as a guidance counselor, a leader or teacher is nullified if the parole officer is clothed with police powers. Of course, di ba, hindi natin masasabi na yan ay tumutulong sa isang parole para maging masupervise sila, para makagawa sila ng maayos kung magiging katatakutan lang sila, di ba? So, di ba, sinasabi natin they are guidance counselor. Okay, a leader or teacher, di ba? So, magiging mamawala yung mga social case work trabaho nila yan kung meron silang uniform. Parang ang dating sa atin is hindi katulad ko halimbawa, police officer. So kung naka-uniform ako parang hindi maganda. Hindi maganda sa aura ko na bilang police is magiging teacher na naka-uniform while teaching. So, dapat kung ano yung trabaho na binigay sa akin, so doon lang ako magfo-focus. So, that is why I'm not wearing my uniform all the time. The other school of thought holds the view that parolees, being persons who have not been able to make adjustment with the demands of society, okay, should be applied certain restraint under threats of arrest and incarceration. Mayroon din namang nagsasabi na school of thoughts na kapag hindi na talaga nakaka-adjust doon sa binibigay na tinatakda ng batas, so sabihan natin na we are going to arrest and put them back again to the prison institution. Okay, not all parolees, according to this view, respond to the guidance, counseling, or leadership techniques of supervision. Hence, the need for authoritarian method for this type of person. So, hindi naman lahat ng tao ay sumusunod sa tinatakda ng batas. So, kung mayroon mga parole na hindi sumusunod sa kanilang supervising parole officers, so ang mangyayari, so we must instill authoritarian method. Ibig sabihin, tayo lang ang masusunod. Experience in various parole agencies, however, prove that the 2 points of view expressed above are without basis. So, yun, meron based on experience na ang dalawang nasabi natin dyan, so they are not expressed about, they are just a view, or they are just a theory, They are no basis. It was satisfactorily proven in many jurisdictions that some parole officers with professional training in social work made good as peace officer. So meron din tayong it is well proven in some areas, for example, jurisdiction ng mga parole officers na merong professional training sa pagpapa-instill ng mabuting asal, social work doon sa mga parolees ay nagiging peace officer, while others whose basic training was in law enforcement made good as case workers. So yun. Classification of cases. The quality of service that the parole officer renders to the parole depends on the size of caseload parole officers have. So, nakadepende rin yan kung nakadepende ang kanyang trabaho na may bibigay doon sa isang parole kung hindi marami ang kung hindi marami ang hawak niya. One cannot expect adequate supervision from a parole officer who has 750 parolees to supervise. Of course, hindi natin halimbawa, so, as expected, pasensya, napaputol yung pagsasalita ko. So, as expected, kapag marami yung hawak niya, so hindi niya masusupervise isa-isa ng maayos. Parole supervision can be simplified and made more effective by adopting a system of classifying parolees. So, alamin natin kung gaano ka-severe yung kanilang sentensya. So, para ma-classify natin kung anong supervision ang i-instill natin o gagamitin natin. Some parolees do not have pressing problems. So, marami naman na walang problema dahil hindi naman mahirap yung kanilang kanilang kinakaharap na kaso. The accidental offender belongs to this type. Kasama dyan yung mga aksidente lang na nakagawa ng krimen based on negligence, for example. This type of parolees needs very little or no supervision from the field parole officers. So dyan, hindi nagkakaroon ng problema yung mga parole officers natin. Another classification of parolees is the type that needs casework as the primary consideration of treatment. So yun, ang problema din ng parole is kung kailangan na casework na ilalapat sa kanila para sila ay tumino o umayos sa lipunan. The parolees may not be serious community risk. Hindi naman sila bigyan na natin sila ng pagkakataon na makalabas. Ibig sabihin, mayroon na tayo sa kanilang respeto at saka we have faith in them. An example of this type is the parolee who is in need of a job or economic aid. Of course. So, kaya nga natin sila binibigyan ng pagkakataong mamuhay sa lipunan dahil gusto natin sila magkaroon ng sarili nilang pamumuhay. Here, the field parole officer can devote full attention to intensive casework that is trying to help his client get a job. So, we are going, that parole officer should give or try his best to help that parolee to get his own job. So, siyempre, dapat bigyan natin tulungan natin magkaroon ng sariling trabaho. Ang isa sa classification for purpose of supervision, bakit kailangan is in which law enforcement function is the first. So, ano yung nakasad sa batas, so yun ang ating gagawin. Even the only consideration. This type of parole needs constant supervision and surveillance by the parole officer in order to prevent the parole from committing crimes. So, yan yung mga parole na kinakailangan ng supervision dahil kapag hindi, pwede silang bumalik sa kanilang nakasanayan. Usually, we find in this classification offenders whose history and background indicate great personal disorganization. Ito yung mga tao na may mga talagang problema sa kanilang pamumuhay. Such as a professional killer, for example, yung mga professional killer natin. So, nabubuhay sila dahil sa pagkitil ng buhay. The gangster, the sex pervert, yung may mga problema. The long-time confidence man, di ba? The field parole officer should be alert to discover signs of misbehavior in this type of parolees and to be quick on his arrest. If ever na bumalik sila dun sa kanilang ginagawa, so kinakailangan natin silang ibalik sa kung saan sila dapat. Knowing the type of offenders his wards are, the parole officer can adjust his schedule of operation. Kapag alam ng taong yan, ng parol na yan, ng offender na yan, kung saan siya bilong na classification, dahil dun sa severity ng kanyang punishment or sentence. So, alam ng parole officer kung kailan at ano ang kanyang gagawin o supervision doon. Devoting intensive supervision to parolees belonging to the third type or giving little time to parolees of the first type. So, malit lamang yung ibibigay nila na attention doon sa first type. So, what do you mean by